Okay, let's dive into this. Tokyo. It just sparks so much curiosity, doesn't it?
It really does. The images, the food, the whole vibe.
Exactly. But then, for anyone even vaguely thinking about moving there or honestly just interested in big global cities, the huge question always comes up. What does it actually cost to live there?
Mm-hmm. The money question.
Yeah, and that's what we're digging into today. We're using insights from movingstay.com. They've been helping folks navigate living and working in Asia for like over 25 years.
Wow, yeah. So they've really seen how things work on the ground. They should have a good handle on the financial side.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And their resources, they seem really practical, lots of detail on day-to-day costs.
Right. Not just fuzzy numbers.
Exactly. So our mission here isn't to overwhelm you with spreadsheets, but really to pull out the key financial stuff, paint a realistic picture. We'll cover the basics, housing, food, getting around, even fun stuff.
Should give you some real clarity whether you're actually planning a move or just, well, curious.
And we should definitely say upfront, we're talking averages here mostly.
Oh, absolutely. Your own spending could look totally different. It really depends on your lifestyle, the choices you make day to day.
Totally. So, okay, the big picture first. What are the kind of overall monthly costs looking like?
Right. The headline figures. MoveAndStay.com puts the average for a single person at around $318,407 per month.
Okay, and for a family, say family of 4.
For a family of 4, it jumps quite a bit, obviously. They estimated around $951,720 per month.
Whoa. Okay, and what's generally included in those numbers? Rent, food.
Yeah, typically that covers the main things: rent, groceries, transport, and, some budget for leisure activities. It's a general baseline.
And like you said, lifestyle is the big variable. Eating out versus cooking at home, that's huge.
Mm-hmm. Or relying on Tokyo's amazing public transport versus, say, taking taxis everywhere. That adds up fast.
Right. And MoveInc.com also mentions the Kanto region average as a kind of wider benchmark.
Yeah, they do. It helps put Tokyo in context within its own region, which can be useful.
Now, Tokyo just has this reputation, doesn't it? Super, super expensive. It's almost part of the brand.
It definitely is. Everyone sort of knows Tokyo is expensive.
But how does that perception actually stack up when you look at the numbers compared to other big cities?
Well, that's where it gets interesting because, yes, Tokyo isn't cheap by any means, but MoveAndCity.com points out, maybe surprisingly, it can actually be more affordable than, say, London.
Really?
Yes. Their data suggests London's monthly costs are significantly higher. For a single person, maybe closer to 594,000, and for a family, potentially over 1.5 million yen.
Wow, that's a huge difference compared to the Tokyo figures you mentioned.
It is. And they also note that Sydney, Australia generally comes out more expensive than Tokyo, too.
Huh. So maybe Tokyo offers a kind of value
Mm.
compared to some other global hubs, if you factor in the quality of life.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. It suggests maybe a better balance between quality of life, which is arguably very high in Tokyo, and the actual cost compared to some other major players. But manageable is still relative, of course.
Of course. Depends on your income, your priorities. Okay, so let's break down what makes it cost, what it does in Tokyo itself. What are the main drivers?
Well, location is a massive one. No surprise there. Living right in the thick of it, like Shibuya or Shinjuku, you'll pay a premium compared to the suburbs.
Right. Central equals convenience equals higher cost. Makes sense. What else?
Housing type and size, naturally. A big modern apartment costs more than a smaller, older one. And then, yeah, lifestyle again, how often you eat out, your transport habits, leisure spending, even how smart you are with grocery shopping can make a difference. MoveAndStay.com emphasizes that.
Okay, let's zoom in on housing then. That's usually the biggest piece of the pie for most people. What's the rental situation like?
Yeah, it's often the single biggest expense, especially if you want to be central, that prime location costs.
So what are we talking ballpark figures for rent in those central areas?
MoveAndStay.com gives some ranges. For a one-bedroom, maybe expect something like $170,000 to $250,000 a month.
Okay.
A two-bedroom could be anywhere from $250,000 up to $400,000. And three bedrooms, you're likely looking at $400,000 plus.
Phew. That's serious money. And those are just averages, I guess.
Exactly. It depends on the exact size, the building's age, condition, and crucially, how close it is to a train station. That's a huge factor in Tokyo.
Right. Walkability to the station.
Mm-hmm. They even cite a figure from late 2024. The average mid-market asking rent in the main 23 wards was about JPY $4,332 per square meter.
Which translates to roughly?
Around $29 per square meter. So even a fairly small place, maybe 50 square meters, centrally located. Yeah, it adds up.
Okay, renting is one thing. What about buying? Is that even on the table for most expats or people moving there?
Buying is a whole different level. It's a major, major investment. MoveAndStay.com makes that clear. Prices vary hugely by area, and it's a big long-term commitment, plus all the extra fees and taxes.
Can you give us a rough idea of buying costs? Per square meter, maybe?
Sure, in the city center, you could be looking at anywhere from 1 million to 3 million per square meter, maybe even more.
Wow.
Outside the absolute center, it might drop to, say, 550,000 to 1.1 million per square meter. Still significant.
Yeah, still a huge investment.
It is, though one point MoveAndStay.com makes is that mortgage interest rates in Japan are often quite low, like maybe around 1.76% yearly for a 20-year fixed rate.
That is low compared to many places.
It is, but you still need to weigh that against average salaries. They mentioned the average net monthly salary is around $356,000 after tax. So affording a mortgage on top of everything else takes careful planning.
Definitely. So buying centrally sounds tough. What tips does MoveAndStay.com have for finding more affordable housing?
The main advice is flexibility and looking further out. Consider areas just outside the core, like Saitama or Chiba. They still have great train links.
Okay, so commute a bit further.
Right. And they also highlight share houses. These are really popular, especially for singles or people new to the city. You get your own room, but share kitchen, living areas, etc. Cuts costs significantly.
Yeah, share houses. That makes sense.
And also, just being open to smaller places, or maybe apartments in slightly older buildings. Those usually rent for less. And definitely use online rental websites. There are lots focused on Tokyo.
Good practical tips. Okay, shifting gears. Food, groceries. What's the damage at the supermarket?
Actually, MoveAndStay.com suggests grocery costs can be pretty manageable if you're smart about it. The key is knowing where to shop.
Right, it's not all fancy department store food halls.
No, definitely not. You got your standard chains like Maruetsu or Aeon, then places like Kaldi Coffee Farm for more international stuff. But crucially, there are budget supermarkets too, like Jemu Super or OK Store. Shopping there makes a real difference.
So a range of options. What kind of monthly budget are we talking?
Roughly.
Very roughly. For a single person, maybe $15,000 to $40,000 a month on groceries. A couple, maybe $30,000 to $80,000. And a family of four could be $50,000 to $150,000 or even more. Big range. Depends on habits.
And specific items like a liter of milk or some eggs, just to get a feel.
Yeah, MoveAndStay.com gives examples. Milk is around $230. A loaf of bread, maybe $222. Kilo of rice, about $715. A dozen eggs, around $326. Chicken fillets, about $1,090 per kilo. Potatoes, apples, oranges. They list prices for common things.
That's super helpful. It gives a real sense of it. Okay, but Tokyo's food scene. Eating out must be tempting. And potentially pricey.
Oh yeah, dining out is amazing there, but it can definitely drain your wallet if you're not careful. A cheap, tasty bowl of ramen might be $800 to $1,200.
Okay, that's reasonable.
But a nice sushi dinner, easily $10,000 per person, maybe more. Lunch sets, though, are often good value, maybe $800 to $1,500. And izakayas, Japanese pubs, maybe $3,000, $5,000 per person for food and drinks. Street food's cheaper, too. So, again, a spectrum. What are the tips for enjoying the food without going broke?
MoveAndStay.com suggests hitting those discount supermarkets. Look for evening markdowns on perishables. Cook at home more often, obviously. Buy seasonal produce, it's usually cheaper. Check out local markets.
Meal planning.
Definitely meal planning. And trying out affordable Japanese ingredients yourself. It can be fun and save money.
Makes sense. All right, let's talk getting around. Tokyo's public transport is legendary, right? Efficient, but costly.
Incredibly efficient trains, subways, buses. It's an amazing network. Clean, safe, super punctual, but yeah, it can get crowded.
The infamous rush hour.
Exactly. But using it is key. For regular commuters, a monthly pass is essential. Saves a lot.
And the cost varies depending on your route.
Totally. It depends on the distance and lines you use. MoveAndStay.com advises checking if your employer offers a commuter allowance or subsidy. That's pretty common in Japan.
Good tip. What are the average fares like? A single trip versus a monthly pass?
A single ticket averages around 214, maybe 180 to 300 range. A monthly pass. The average is maybe 8,000, but the range is huge, like 4,400 up to nearly 18,000, depending on your commute.
Wow. Yeah. Depends heavily on where you live and work. What about taxis? Just avoid them.
Pretty much. For regular travel, they're easy to find but expensive. The meter starts around 500 and climbs quickly. Better for late nights when trains stop, or maybe short trips if you're splitting the fare.
Ride-sharing apps. Are they a thing there?
Increasingly, yes, but still not as widespread as in some other cities, according to MoveNStay.com. Public transport is generally king for cost effectiveness. Get a Suica or Pasmo card, use navigation apps, and you're set.
Got it. Okay, utilities and internet. The boring but essential stuff. What do those cost?
Utilities vary a lot with apartment size, season heating and cooling, and just how much you use. MoveNStay.com gives a range for an 85 square meter place, maybe 17,000 to 47,000 a month total for electricity, gas, water, garbage.
That's a big range. Can you break it down?
Roughly, yeah. Electricity might be 8,000 to 15,000, higher in summer winter for a cheating. Gas, maybe 3,000 to 8,000, also higher in winter. Water's more stable, perhaps 2,000 to 4,000. Newer apartments are often more energy efficient, which helps.
And just being mindful helps too, I guess.
Yeah.
Turning things off.
Absolutely. Every bit counts.
What about internet? Staying connected.
Good options there. Pocket Wi-Fi is one, around 3,500 a month, or fixed broadband fiber optic at home, maybe 4,500 a month on average, often with unlimited data. Japan's internet infrastructure is generally excellent.
Reliable and decent price.
Yeah.
Any tips from moveandstay.com on saving on utilities?
Yeah, compare providers for electricity and gas. Track your usage. Many companies have apps for that. Be energy conscious, lights off, unplug things. Consider smart meters if available. They get more detailed usage info.
Smart. Okay, now for families moving. Childcare and education. That could be a huge cost.
Definitely a major factor. MoveAndStay.com breaks down childcare options. Licensed daycare, Ninka Huikun, is cheaper, maybe 10,000 to 60,000 a month, often with subsidies based on income.
But hard to get into.
Very high demand, yeah. Waiting lists are common. You apply via the city hall. Unlicensed ones, Ninkagai Hoikumen, are easier to get into but cost more, maybe 40,000 to 80,000.
And international options.
International preschools are popular for expats, but much pricier. 100,000 to 250,000 a month isn't unusual. Then there are other types too. Kindergartens, smaller centers.
A lot to navigate. What about schools for older kids?
Public schools are more affordable with subsidies, but international schools, which many expats choose, are expensive. MoveAndStay.com lists examples with annual fees from maybe 780,000 up to 3.5 million yen or more.
Wow, huge range again. Need to check specific schools.
Absolutely. Check fees directly, look into any aid available.
And after-school stuff like tutoring or activities.
Juku, the cram schools, are very common, especially for older kids prepping for exams. Costs vary, maybe 10,000 to 50,000 plus a month. Younger kids do sports, music, arts. Those add costs too. Education is a big priority, and families often invest heavily.
Sounds like it. Okay, finally, let's talk leisure and entertainment. Enjoying Tokyo. What does that cost?
Tokyo has endless options, but yeah, they mostly cost something. Movie tickets, maybe 1,500 to 2,000. Karaoke starts cheap, maybe 300 an hour per person, but can go up. Gym membership, around 10,000 a month. Renting a tennis court, maybe 100, 800 an hour on weekends.
Standard stuff. What about just casual meals out or nightlife?
Casual meal, maybe 1,000 to 2,000 per person. Fancier place, 5,000 plus easily. Drinks at a bar, 500 for a beer, 8,000 plus for a cocktail is typical. Nightlife can get expensive, so planning or finding happy hours helps.
And cultural things. Museums, temples.
Museums and galleries are often reasonable, maybe 500 to 1,500 entry. Temples and gardens are often free, or just a few hundred yen. Live shows vary. Local bands might start around 6,000. Big international acts way more, like 12,000 upwards.
So, need to budget for fun.
Definitely. MoveAndStay.com suggests budgeting for it, but also exploring free stuff like parks and festivals and looking for discounts.
Right. So, putting it all together, Tokyo,
Right.
it's manageable, but needs planning.
That's the takeaway, really. It can be costly, sure. But as MoveAndStay.com shows of all their data, if you plan carefully, understand the costs, and make conscious choices, it's definitely doable. Their info is a great starting point.
And you have to weigh the costs against the experience. Right? Tokyo offers so much that's unique.
Exactly. The finances are critical, but they're only part of the picture. The culture, the energy, the quality of life, those are huge factors too.
Which kind of leads to a final thought for you listening. Looking at all these costs, housing, food, fun, which ones would hit your lifestyle the hardest?
Yeah, thinking about how you would prioritize spending in a city like Tokyo, comparing your own values to these costs. That might give you a really personal insight into what living there would actually feel like for you, something to mull over.